The dog was thin, filthy, and limping. People swatted it away as it scratched at restaurant doors and stood outside grocery stores with desperate eyes. But when one kind stranger finally followed the dog, what he found in the alley behind the bakery left him speechless. This dog wasn't begging for itself. It was trying to save someone else. And what lay hidden in the shadows would uncover a story no one was prepared to hear. People walk past miracles every day, too distracted or too skeptical to notice. Sometimes, a story unfolds not through heroes in uniforms or headlines on screens, but through the soft padding of paws on pavement and the unwavering loyalty of a creature dismissed by society. This isn't just the story of a stray dog. It's the story of compassion ignored, of cries misunderstood, and of the extraordinary truth that emerged when someone finally decided to listen. This is the story of Max, a dirty, limping street dog that begged strangers for food, but not for himself. And the moment someone followed him, everything changed. It was a rainy Tuesday in the heart of the city. People rushed under umbrellas, shielding their coffees and avoiding puddles. Among the blur of motion and honking horns was a figure that didn't belong. Max, once someone's pet, now a nameless stray, walked with a limp and matted fur. He wasn't cute anymore, just another part of the street. Outside a small cafe called Sunrise Deli, Max pawed at the glass door. His tail wagged with desperation, eyes wide, ears back. The barista inside shooed him away with a flick of the rag. "Go away, mutt," she muttered, laughing with the customer. The laughter stung worse than the rain. Max didn't flinch. He turned, trotted to the next store. A grocery. He stopped, sniffed, then sat near the garbage bins, not to dig through them, but to stare at the people walking by. What no one realized was that Max wasn't hungry. He had passed up an open sandwich earlier, nudging it toward the shadows of a nearby alley. But no one noticed that either. People filmed him on their phones. "Look at this beggar," one teen laughed on a live stream. "Who you beggin' for, dog?" Only one man watched with curiosity instead of ridicule. Ethan, 33, a mechanic on his lunch break, stood with his sandwich untouched. He'd noticed something strange. The dog didn't eat the bread it had been given. Instead, Max picked it up, limped away, and disappeared into the alley behind the bakery. Ethan hesitated, then tossed his lunch in his bag and followed. The alley was dark, smelling of yeast, oil, and damp cardboard. Max had vanished behind a dumpster. Ethan crouched, heart racing, not with fear, but with something else, anticipation. And then he saw it. Behind a stack of crates and wet blankets lay a cardboard box, partially chewed and covered with torn towels. Inside were two tiny puppies, trembling and silent. Their eyes were barely open. One of them looked severely underweight. Max had returned, setting the sandwich down. He nosed a corner of the box gently, pushing it closer to the pups. He wasn't begging for himself. He was feeding his babies. Ethan stood frozen. The pieces clicked in his mind. The begging, the sandwich left untouched. The alley. Max wasn't a stray looking for scraps. He was a father, doing what no one expected, sacrificing every ounce of energy for his puppies. Ethan's eyes welled up. He crouched slowly, hands open. "Hey, buddy," he whispered. Max's ears perked. His body was tense, but his eyes were pleading. Ethan reached out slowly, placing his hand near the box. Max didn't bite. He didn't bark. He just laid down beside the puppies, resting his head on the cold pavement. Ethan took out his phone, snapped a photo, then made a call. An hour later, an animal welfare van pulled up. Ethan insisted on staying. The rescue workers tried to coax Max out, but he refused to leave the box. Only when they carefully lifted the puppies, wrapping them in warm blankets, did Max finally rise to his feet and follow. The rescue team was stunned. One worker, Maria, whispered, "I've never seen anything like this. A street dog refusing food so his puppies could eat." The story might have ended there, with a quiet rescue and grateful tears. But Ethan wasn't done. He posted the pictures online with the caption, "People laughed at this dirty dog for begging." Turns out, he wasn't begging for himself. He was trying to feed his family. Be better humans. The post exploded. Thousands of shares, hundreds of comments. People apologized. Some recognized Max from the street and were ashamed. Others donated to the shelter where Max and the puppies were being kept. But not everyone was happy. That night, Ethan received a message from a private number. "You shouldn't have taken that dog." Ethan thought it was a prank. But the next day, someone broke into the shelter. Cameras were smashed. Cages opened. But only one animal was missing, Max. The puppies were untouched. The staff was shaken. "Why take Max and not the others?" Maria asked, trembling. Who would want an old, limping street dog? Ethan felt sick. He remembered something strange. The symbol he had seen near the alley. A faint spray-painted shape on the wall. A red circle with a black X. He hadn't thought much of it then. But now, the shelter's surveillance backups revealed a man in a hooded jacket and gloves. The way he moved, purposeful, quick, not afraid. Max hadn't just been a stray. And this wasn't just a coincidence. Ethan's post had gone viral. He'd drawn attention. But maybe he'd drawn the wrong kind of attention. Emma froze. That sound, it wasn't imagined. A faint, pained yelp echoed once more, low and pleading. She looked at Bruno, who now stood perfectly still, ears perked and tail still, eyes fixed on a thicket just ahead. Bruno took a step forward, then looked back again. Okay, I'm coming," Emma whispered, breath hitching as anxiety and adrenaline surged through her veins. Pushing past low-hanging branches, Emma emerged into a small clearing. Her eyes widened, and her breath caught in her throat. Lying on a patch of flattened grass was a second dog. A puppy. Smaller than Bruno, even thinner, with patches of fur missing and one leg curled under its body unnaturally. It whimpered again. Emma dropped to her knees beside the injured animal. Bruno came close, gently licking the puppy's face. "Is this your baby?" she whispered, her voice cracking. The puppy opened its eyes slowly, and despite its pain, wagged its tiny tail. Bruno let out a low, almost human-sounding whine. Emma took off her jacket and carefully scooped the puppy into it, noticing now that its paw was bleeding and possibly broken. "You're incredible," she murmured to Bruno, tears in her eyes. "You were never begging for yourself. You were trying to save this little one." The walk back felt longer. Emma kept glancing at Bruno, who walked close to her now, eyes locked on the bundle in her arms. Each step was tense. What if the puppy didn't make it? What if she was too late? At the edge of town, the first bystanders spotted her. A few people pointed. One even laughed. "That the same mutt that's always hanging around the bins?" someone said. Emma ignored them. She went straight to the local vet, Dr. Landry, a retired army medic turned animal savior. Dr. Landry took one look at the scene and pulled them inside without a word. The clinic smelled of antiseptic and dog shampoo. Posters of rescue stories lined the walls. Emma sat silently as Dr. Landry worked, his hands gentle but fast. Hours passed. Emma fed Bruno some kibble and water from a paper bowl. He ate slowly, keeping his eyes on the door to the examination room. Then, finally, Dr. Landry came out. "She'll make it," he said softly. "It's a girl, about 6 weeks old, malnourished, front leg fractured, but she's a fighter." Emma felt a weight lift off her chest. "Thank you," she whispered. Dr. Landry nodded. "But the real thanks goes to that dog. He carried her here the only way he knew how." Bruno wagged his tail gently, his head tilted. Emma couldn't stop thinking about what he had done. He'd endured hunger, humiliation, laughter from strangers, all to save someone else. That night, she posted the story online, photos of Bruno, the rescue, the puppy. She didn't expect it to go viral. But by morning, the post had over 300,000 shares. Comments poured in. "I'll never ignore a stray again. He's a hero. This story made me cry. What a dog." Emma was overwhelmed. Donations began rolling in for Bruno and the puppy's care. But something even more surprising happened. The local news showed up, then national channels. Reporters interviewed Emma. Bruno posed for photos, his eyes bright, tail wagging. He didn't understand the attention. He only knew one thing: his puppy was alive. But Emma's joy turned to confusion when a woman approached her after a local segment aired. I think that dog belonged to my brother. He went missing months ago." Emma stared at her, shocked. "What do you mean?" The woman held out a photo. It was Bruno, but younger, cleaner, with a red collar. And beside him stood a man in military uniform. Emma's heart dropped. The old man, Mr. Whitaker, stood beside Emily as they watched the dirty dog nudge a piece of bread behind a bush. With trembling hands, he pushed aside the branches, and what he saw made his heart skip. There, nestled in a bed of leaves, were 3 tiny puppies, all no older than a few weeks. Their eyes were crusted shut, ribs visible through matted fur. One whined softly as the mother dog returned, placing the bread gently in front of them. Emily gasped, kneeling beside the pups. She wasn't begging for herself. She was saving them. Mr. Whitaker took a step back, visibly shaken. "I've seen dogs scavenge, but never like this. She's risking her life every day for them." His voice cracked. Emily turned to him, eyes filled with urgency. "We can't leave them here. They won't survive another cold night." He hesitated. "The shelter's full, and I live in a studio apartment the size of a closet." But the dirty dog, now revealed as a mother, looked up at them both, tail barely wagging, hope in her eyes. Emily made up her mind. "Then I'll take them. All of them. I don't know how, but I will." Back at her apartment, Emily scrambled. She set up blankets, bowls of water, and the little kibble she had. The mama dog hesitated at the door, unsure if this was another trap. Emily knelt, holding the door open. "It's okay. Come inside. You're safe." Tentatively, the dog padded forward, sniffing each corner, finally curling up beside her puppies. She licked them, then rested her chin on Emily's foot. Tears welled in Emily's eyes. That night, Emily stayed up researching dog care, vet costs, and how to report animal neglect. She posted a thread online, sharing pictures and the story. Within hours, it was shared hundreds of times. People were shocked. She begged so her babies could live? This is the kind of heroism we don't deserve. Where can we donate to help? By morning, donations were pouring in. $100, 501 anonymous donor gave $5,000. Local news outlets picked up the story. Stray dog begs for food to save her starving puppies. It went viral. Emily was overwhelmed. Strangers sent supplies. A vet offered free checkups. Even her landlord, initially furious, softened. Just don't let them chew the baseboards. Mr. Whitaker showed up the next day, carrying a crate of canned dog food. Figured you could use a hand. Emily laughed. You're officially their grandpa now. Days passed. The puppies grew stronger. The mama dog, now named Hope, wagged her tail more freely, no longer flinching at sudden movements. One evening, Emily noticed Hope sniffing toward the door again. Not in fear, but something else. Purpose. She stood up, tail straight, and pawed at the door. Emily opened it. Hope trotted out, then looked back. She wants us to follow her. Mr. Whitaker grabbed his jacket. Let's see where she takes us. Hope led them back into the woods, but not to the bush. They walked for nearly 20 minutes, deeper and deeper, past familiar landmarks. Then she stopped, in front of an abandoned shack, barely visible under ivy and rot. Hope whined, pawing at the door. Emily's pulse quickened. Is there someone in there? They pushed the door open. The stench was overwhelming, mold, decay, something foul. Dust floated in beams of light. Broken furniture, torn wallpaper. But then, on the walls, they saw something that made Emily freeze. Drawings. Crayon sketches. Dozens of them. Each showed children. Faces scribbled in innocent detail. And behind each child, a dark, towering figure. Emily turned to Mr. Whitaker. What is this place? He paled. This was an old children's foster site, shut down years ago. Rumors of abuse. No one came back here after. Hope barked again, frantic now. She darted toward a corner, scratching furiously at the floorboards. Emily and Whitaker pried them up. Beneath was a small box. Inside, old toys, a journal, and a locket with a picture of two children. Tears streamed down Emily's cheeks. These were her babies, her human babies. Mr. Whitaker nodded solemnly. This wasn't just her hiding place. It was home. The pieces clicked. Hope wasn't just begging for food. She'd stayed in the area, watching the world mock her, because this place, this trauma-filled shack, held the memory of the ones she'd lost. But now she had new babies to protect, and new people to trust. Emily made a vow right there. I'll turn this into a shelter, not just for her, but for every animal left behind. Every soul laughed at, abandoned, like Hope. Mr. Whitaker smiled. You're a special one, Emily. Hope knew it. As the sun set behind the broken roof, Hope nestled beside her pups, and for the first time, there was peace. The following morning, Emily stood in front of the old shack, her boots muddy, eyes filled with determination. This place doesn't have to stay a ghost of what it was, she told Mr. Whitaker. We can rebuild it. He glanced around at the mold-stained walls and shattered windows. It's a wreck. Then let's start with one wall, she said. And they did. Emily posted about the shack online, calling it Hope's Shelter. The name resonated. Donations poured in, not just from dog lovers, but from people who'd once felt forgotten themselves. Meanwhile, Hope was no longer just a dog. She was a symbol, News outlets revisited the story, not just to highlight the viral moment, but to dig deeper. The mystery of the children's drawings, the whispers of what happened at the old foster site, captured hearts. An investigative reporter named Lena tracked down public records. There were complaints, investigations that went nowhere. Kids who disappeared from the system, she explained. Emily listened in shock. And no one ever followed up? They were street kids. Forgotten. Lena's voice broke. Except by her. That week, Emily was invited on national television to talk about Hope. She was nervous, but brought the dog with her. When asked what message she wanted to share, Emily looked into the camera and said, "Sometimes the smallest voices are the ones we ignore the most. This dog, she remembered love when the world didn't. That's what makes her a hero." Hope's calm, steady gaze into the camera lens said more than words could. Back at the shelter, they were receiving more animals than ever. People from all over were driving in to adopt, volunteer, or just leave supplies. Children painted murals of Hope and her puppies on the new shelter walls. One even read, "She barked not for herself, but for others." Then something unexpected happened. A man showed up one afternoon holding a framed photograph. His name was Caleb, and he had tears in his eyes. "This is my sister," he said, pointing to the photo. She was one of the kids in that foster shack. Emily froze. She always talked about a brown dog that never left her side. She called her Hope even then. Said she'd protect her from the shadows. He pointed to one of the crayon drawings found in the shack. The girl in the picture was identical. "I thought she made it up. A kid's fantasy," Caleb whispered. "But it was real." Emily's voice cracked. Hope remembered her. The man knelt beside Hope, who cautiously sniffed his hand, then licked it. Tears ran down Caleb's face. "Thank you for saving her babies." Again. As weeks passed, Hope's story was turned into a children's book, Hope the Hero, sold out within days. Schools invited Emily and Hope to speak about kindness and rescue. Hope became a certified therapy dog, visiting hospitals and comforting trauma survivors. But most importantly, she was never alone again. Then came the anniversary of the day Emily first saw her, dirty and begging. They organized a candlelight event called the Night of Hope. Dozens gathered on the rebuilt bridge where it all began. People held candles. Many brought dogs. Emily stepped forward and said, "A year ago, people laughed at her, but today we celebrate her." And just then, as if on cue, Hope let out a single soft bark, more like a whisper. Everyone smiled. That night, Emily sat in the shelter's yard, surrounded by the now healthy puppies, who were being adopted one by one. Hope lay beside her, head on her lap. "You know," Emily whispered, "I thought I was saving you, but you saved me." Hope looked up, tail thumping once. From a discarded dog to a worldwide symbol of loyalty, motherhood, and memory. She had never once stopped fighting for those who needed her. And in the end, she reminded the world what it had almost forgotten. The purest acts of love often come from those with nothing left to give, except everything. Thank you for watching Red Heart. If this story moved you, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. And remember, sometimes a bark isn't a cry for help. It's a call to action.